Now what I would like to do very briefly is I wanted to share some pictures with everyone that some of our SSAI employees took during the eclipse. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go through a couple of slides where you'll be able to see some of our SSAI employees who took the photos. And during this presentation, Holly, Kristen, and I, we're just going to talk briefly about some of the images that are displayed and how awesome and impactful they are in motivating us to see the next solar eclipse, especially in Spain in 2026.
And Iceland. It also is also Iceland and Spain. So.
Oh, Iceland and Spain. Nice. Awesome. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Holly, Kristen, you both ready?
All ready.
All righty. So these are some of the photos that some of our SSAI employees took that are included in this presentation. So again, this is the shadows and spectacles where we captured the magic of the recent solar eclipse that happened earlier this week. We hope that all of you enjoy these photos. But here we go. We are going to begin. The curtain has opened. And there's a couple of photos that I am going to display here. So these couple of photos were taken from an SSAI senior research scientist named Guillermo Gronoff. So he sent a couple of photos from Bloomington, Indiana, based on his experiences in seeing the solar eclipse. So shout out to Guillermo Gronoff. Thank you so much for sending your solar eclipse images. They have been fantastic. There's one image that I wanted to speak a little bit about here. And this was this. So I'm not as familiar with this image. So Holly, I was just going to ask very quickly, would you mind telling the audience a little bit about this image here?
Yeah, it looks like a colander, and it's an indirect viewing method. So if you don't have a way to look directly at the sun, or you just want to play around with shadows, you can get anything with small holes. I mean, even your interwoven fingers will work really well. And you stand with your back to the sun and let the light shine through those little holes. And what you're seeing on the ground there is those crescent-shaped shadows are the same shape as the sun, as the eclipsed sun at this point. So it's a fun way to kind of track the progress of the eclipse without actually directly watching it the whole time.
I did notice when I was doing this that it definitely works better if you're later, like more towards totality, when you have more of a crescent shape. It's not as noticeable in the early periods of the eclipse. The other thing was interesting. So there was a mission called Punch that was distributing viewing cards that had circles, triangles, and squares on the punch card to show up. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but they all still showed up as crescents on the ground, which I thought was neat. So, you know, I personally, when you look at them with the regular sun, like without an eclipse, you see the square and the triangle and the circle. But if you saw them during partiality, at least where I could see the crescent, it was kind of the same shape. It didn't have a difference, which was interesting.
The interesting thing, excuse me, about those cards and any of this indirect viewing method is you're going to see the shape of the hole if the focal length is right. So if you hold those cards closer to the ground, you're going to see the shape of the star, the circle, the square. But if you pull them up from the ground a little bit, those shapes will resolve into a circle, which is reflective of the shape of the sun. So that's a focal length thing. And then during the eclipse, and we played around with this, in Kerrville, it was so cloudy, we barely had a chance to see shadows. And the one point where we couldn't get the focal length right to get the crescents. We were getting the circle, square. I had some of those punch cards with me. Circle, square, star on the ground. By the time we pulled it up enough to get the sun, there just wasn't enough light to cast a shadow. But yeah, it's a focal length thing. It's really fascinating to play around with.
Yeah, it was fun to play with.
Oh, that's fantastic. And, you know, I was going to say, I've actually never even heard of, you know, those punch cards. I'd have to do like some further research. Can you get those online or?
Well, so the mission is called Punch. And so I think it looks like Holly is getting one. I don't have one handy, but so, and I forget what it stands for. But it is that, so they were playing on the acronym there. So the,
oh, look at my length right there. Punch, and you can see there's the square, the circle, the triangle. And then I believe this is on their website. They have a description on the back about what the science is, about why you get those different shapes. So they have a QR code on the front, but the URL is punch.space.swri.edu.
That's fantastic. Well, I was going to say, Holly, thank you so much for showing us, one of those cards. And what I'm going to do, audience members, for those who are listening and watching, I'm also going to include a link there in the bottom description of this video for you all to check out. So please definitely check that out when you can. So that's just absolutely incredible. So thank you, Holly and Kristen, for sharing your thoughts in relation to that. So that's awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue here. There's a couple more images here. And again, these images are also from Guillermo Gronoff here. So these are a couple images that he took here. And again, these images are beautiful. This image, Holly and Kristen, again, it reminds me of a black hole because of, the bright light and, this overall circular shape. It makes me think, if you go into it, you're going to get stuck and, won't ever come back out. So it's very fascinating in relation to some of these images here. And there's a couple others here just to show all of you. This image here was taken from one of our SSAI employees, corporate chief scientist, Oreste Real. This is Oreste here with his, I believe, his 20-year-old telescope. So shout out to Oreste Real. Thank you so much for sending us your image that you took from the solar eclipse. It's just truly incredible. And now there's a couple additional images here that I wanted to direct your attention here. So if you all notice with my mouse, I'm going up and down in this little bit of a triangular shape here. You notice there's a little triangle here. Kristen, I'm going to turn this over to you. Can you explain to everybody what this triangle is and what this represents?
So yeah, so that's a solar prominence. So it's an area where there's activity on the sun, and that's because we are entering a more active phase of the sun compared to 2017. So that's an active area of the sun. So there's actually some mass coming off from the surface of the sun, and we're able to see it because the sun's surface is blocked. So normally you wouldn't be able to see that. And actually, it's kind of interesting to think about that. That's in the lower corona. We have artificial coronagraphs, but they would actually block that. So that's something you wouldn't be able to see with the artificial coronagraph, but you can see during the natural eclipse. And I could see that in a way where I was, because this color is a slightly different, maybe because of the exposure, but you can actually see a little bit up to the right, sort of the pinkish reddish color. It was very noticeably reddish pink in the sky when I was observing from Arkansas.
Wow. That's absolutely incredible. And I know in relation to everybody who, might be observing with a phone, as long as you have protection, or especially, with a telescope, depending on, what kind of telescope it is and, what images it can capture, it can also, potentially capture some of these images like these. So this is very fascinating. And I can't remember in 2017, Holly and Kristen, with this, did either of you see this at all? I don't believe I saw.
So the sun was less active in 2017. So you're much less likely to have seen that sort of thing because the sun just was not producing as many prominences, as much of the solar activity as it is right now.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's like every eclipse is different.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But each one, from what you, Holly, and Kristen have said, each one is special and it's unique in its own way. So the fact that we were able to get this image of this prominence here, it's just absolutely incredible. So again, thank you, Guillermo Gronoff, for sending those images. And then just to kind of wrap up here, as you all can see, these are some of our Rockstar SSAI employees. We have some of our Rockstar engineers, scientists, and technicians, and even some of our company executives here who are taking a look at the eclipse. They are wearing their solar viewing glasses, but they're also outside enjoying their experience outside in Maryland. So overall, it was just an absolute incredible, experience for a lot of people to see. And we got some very good photos. So thank you to those SSAI employees who shared these great photos here.